This next gentleman here, when I reached out to people asking about Bowie and what Bowie meant to them, there was a thing that came up with a lot of them, and it was just like Bowie's relationship with certain individuals, whether it was Bowie and Eno, Bowie and Iggy, Bowie and Tony Visconti, and of course Bowie and Mick Ronson being a big one. And my friend here coming up next is you could probably say he's an expert on it. I'm not gonna waste any more time. He's currently playing with the band Junkyard. He is known for Broken Glass back in the 90s. He's played with a bunch of people, Steve Jones, and he's a composer, and he writes scores and music for TV shows and movies, and he's my friend. Here is Mr. Tim Mosher. Tim, come on aboard.
Hello, Gio.
How are you, brother? What's going on with you, man?
Well, I'm sitting in my house like the rest of us.
Lockdown. How you been, man?
I've been good. I'm all right. Healthy. So.
Healthy. That's important. Staying healthy.
Still in my house, so I guess I'm in the higher reaches of happy, I guess. So.
How have you kept busy this past year?
Well, my main gig is my gig as a composer. Usually I'm in a small little room with a computer writing and recording music. So to a certain extent, nothing's really it didn't change much for me.
It's not really that different, right?
Yeah, it's not. They're not making as many television shows, and that's a problem. But I've been able to do library work and other stuff just to keep myself out of trouble. So I've actually been pretty busy. But yeah, it'd be nice to get things going again. So I've just, I go to the studio and I write almost every single day. I try to almost every day. So yeah, literally almost every day. And then, just
good
I don't see a lot of people. Good times. I don't know. Try to be a bit healthier. Like exercise more, all that stuff. Since I have the time.
You had no excuse now, right?
Well, I've been touring a lot the last. Well, Junkyard had an album come out in 2017, like the first real album in a long time, and we toured. We were doing probably 40 shows a year, something like that, since then, and a lot of fly-ins, but some longer stuff, and went to Europe twice or three times. I can't remember, and we literally had just finished a run of dates with this Canadian band, Danko Jones. It was kind of a much bigger thing in Europe, and we just did a bunch of shows to the West Coast, and they're great. If anyone hasn't checked them out,
I didn't know that lead singer is definitely, or Danko, I guess. Is a proponent of that nice sort of aggressive, kind of tight pop, like poppy, heavy rock, but it's still kind of like in your face.
Yeah, it's got some punk, but it's also got a good deal of like Thin Lizzy and maybe a little straight up. It's got a lot of like gang, big choruses, and he's a great performer. So we did a bunch of shows with them, and they were like literally about to get on a plane to Europe, and it was at the end of February, and we had a whole summer tour booked and all this shit booked, of course. And he had like he does almost arenas over there as a headliner, whereas he's playing clubs with us. But and then just the breaks went on. So we've sort of been I had a whole band life where most of my weeks would be spent in the studio, and then I would go out for a lot of weekend fly-ins, which are pretty exhausting, really. And so, all that stopped, and it doesn't show any signs of starting again. So, maybe some signs that there's a vaccine, but.
Yeah, I'd say fall. But until then, we got each other. We got music.
Yeah, that's right.
We got family. We got time to think.
I'd hope fall. That sounds like fun. I haven't not done a show in that. I've taken some years off when I was kind of, got dropped. Yeah. But so anyway, it is what it is.
It is, but you know, to this week's topic, Mr. David Bowie. I feel
Bowie,
like,
yes, fuck Bowie.
you know, we have the music that we kind of like were inspired by, and it's for me, it's been a lot of kind of going back to the big life changers. You know what I mean? And Bowie's definitely one of them. And I thank you for joining me for the show about this, but you in particular wanted to talk about Bowie and Mick Ronson, and there is no more like seminal relationship, you know, and that cemented Bowie as far as for him to be able to do everything else he did after.
Yeah.
That's
well, I think one interesting thing about Bowie, he obviously had a great eye for talent, because he found guys all through his career that really, you know, most guys like him find a foil and they run with that foil.
Yeah, like Mick finds his Keith.
Yeah, and even like punk guy, Billy Idol found his Steve Stevens or whatever it is. Like, you kind of find a guy who gets your voice, and that's what you do. I mean, but Bowie he seemed to be searching for a long time for a guy. You know what I mean? And I think that when he found Ronson, I've heard him, he said, I found my Jeff Beck. Like, he found his guitar hero. But he found him in Hull, of all places. I mean, he found
Hull, as in Warhol.
Yeah, Hull. and you know, and then I guess Mick had a lot to do with putting together what would end up being Spiders, which was a really obviously seminal band that are on. My two favorite records are Hunky Dory and Ziggy Prince. You know, Ziggy's still number one.
Yeah.
You know? And that era, you know, and I kind of came to that. I mean, Bowie was always there. Like, you know, like when I was 13 or 12 or 13, you know, everyone had Changes One. Like, it was like the record that everybody, your cool older brother had. And that had a lot. I mean, it had obviously great stuff on it, but you know, I didn't know when Fame came out as opposed to, you know, Ziggy Stardust, the song or something. But I always gravitated towards those harder songs, the G&G.
Yeah, the rock songs.
On the greatest hits, because I'm a guitar guy, and I love good guitar. So it wasn't until I got old, until I started playing in bands, and the whole punk thing happened. And obviously Bowie was like really out in front of all that. Like, he was very involved in all that and was a precursor for it. And, you know, people listen to records like Low and stuff like that. But I had a guy in a band who was a real Bowie freak, and he kind of hit me even deeper. You know, he was like, oh no, Diamond Dogs. And, you know, like the stuff that was a little more out there. I mean, you know, Station to Station, the darker shit, like weirder shit. And I like all that. But as time went on, I just kind of always went back to that Ziggy album. You know, it's just something about that band. I like that kind of band. And I think that's probably the most influential band on the sound of punk too. You know, I mean, there's two or three bands that really influenced the sound of punk, but for the British kids, it's Ronson, because Steve Jones principally was very influenced by Ronson, and probably Mick Jones as well. Though he was also a very big Mott the Hoople guy, which is also Bowie when you really get down to it. And so Ronson had such a big. I mean, if you listen to the endings of, you listen to the ending of John, I'm Only Dancing, and that feedback thing that Ronson does. I talked to Steve Jones. He goes, "Oh, that's if you listen to every Pistols song on Bollocks, there's the little guitar things at the end, the feedback or the all that shit that I love them." And I'm like, he's like, "Oh, I just got all that came from John, I'm Only Dancing." You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
And so Ronson was always huge to him, and the Pistols were huge to me, and then so I kind of backfilled. Like, Bowie was always there. I always liked Bowie. Everyone knew the hits. He was a big rock star, And then I went back and, you had the high school girlfriend who was really into Hunky Dory. That was like mandatory, I guess, back then.
That would be me. That would be me.
Girlfriend. Hunky Dory,
Like, Hunky Dory is still my favorite.
I mean, I love it. I mean, I just think Ziggy's a little more consistent. I think there's a couple places.
Oh no, I mean, Ziggy is like is
perfect record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it sounds really fresh. And now as I read about it, they did both records basically back to back within weeks of each other, which is insane when you think about it. That he had, because I saw interviews that said, yeah, we finished. I don't know if it was Woody, the drummer, or the bass player, Trevor, said, we finished Hunky Dory. And he says, all right, we're coming back in 2 weeks. We're doing this new thing. And it was Ziggy Stardust. And he had the whole thing ready to go, And I was like, I mean, you could see that Queen Bitch was like really the first real Spiders-y sounding song he did. That could have been on. And
it's weird because it's even older song.
Yeah,
it just kind of like held on to it.
It really got the full Ronson treatment. That's the first time you really hear that big guitar sound, that honky kind of Les Paul. Like Ronson had a very unique sound, really unique. And so that's the first time I really knew. And that was always when I was younger. I liked the things that were harder when I was younger. I didn't understand all the craft involved in what he was doing, even on those songs. But I'm sure he would rather you not get into the craft, if you dig it or don't. And those were the ones I dug, And so. And then when you can really go deep dive on Ziggy, you really can. And I tend to like things that are, I don't know, I think a fully thought out thing is really hard to do. I think it's cool. It's very rare that a record kind of has a good beginning, middle, and ending. Even if a record has all good songs, they don't necessarily always tie together that great.
Yeah, or the way that they're lined up, or just the sequence.
I like the way when it's when I hear that they did it really quickly, like second takes, a lot of first takes. They were on fire, and he was showing the chords, they run them down. I mean,
It'd been several albums already that Ronson was working with Bowie.
Right, they started on Man Who Sold the World, I guess. And the guys kind of got brought in. I know Woody came in, was on Hunky Dory. I don't know if Trevor Bolder was. Yeah, he was on Hunky Dory. I don't know if he was on Man Who Sold the World. Might have been.
But I think the combination of those guys playing out, doing shows out, and then, like you said, that the sort of like sudden recording for. I mean, also, Bowie's like we were talking before, that Bowie's just always had the big picture in mind. Like he.
Yeah, he was really like that. He always had. I mean,
and the concept of Ziggy is just altogether. It's just,
the thing that was interesting about him, and it was kind of a pity too, because if you're a fan of one specific era of his, is that he moves through them. I mean, the Spiders existed for like 2 years, really, but some of my favorite bands the Pistols only existed 2 years, in the real form, and that's. Clash existed 5 years in total, even after in the weird end bit, So, I mean, the real Clash only exists for like 5 years. So it's, I see his point about moving forward. So he's not a nostalgic person, or wasn't a nostalgic person, but you do lose people along the way, like Ronson and him. I'd like to see what they could have done later too, like why not circle back, but
maybe late '80s, like early '90s, like at the end.
Yeah, it would have been interesting, I mean, Ronson died so fucking young. I mean, that was part of it.
And that was quick.
Might have, but it was kind of a pity. But Ronson went on to get stuff. And was a great producer. I mean, I think that's the things I've learned. I didn't realize
that's the thing. That's
I loved, and
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's definitely David's gift to Ronson, is that he allowed him to become a producer.
And he gave him free reign to.
Yeah, I mean because it's like they
most guys who can write or can write manuscript type actual write music don't turn into like soulful cool guitar players like Ronson. He was a rare breed. You know what I mean? Because he's not studied in his guitar playing. It's really in the moment, and he goes for shit. He does weird shit. It's not like constructed in a way that you think someone who can write musical notation would write, because it's not. It's written like by like a rock and roller, which is like, this feels good. That sounds good. I'm going here. I'll make it work. I'll figure it out when I get there. Like real good the great rock and roll guitar players you feel like are always sort of about to fall apart. Jimmy Page, it's just like, is he going to pull this one off? Johnny Thunder. And that's great.
There are a lot of stories about Ronson too. Like as they were recording, he'd kind of like hide in a corner or be in the bathroom like 5 minutes right before they were about to record, and he'd be changing parts and come out and come out like smiling and saying, "I'm ready."
Right.
And,
yeah, he was really in the moment that way. And I mean, just even the song Ziggy Stardust, the way he approaches that riff, he goes way up in the octave on that thing, and that's as big a hook as the fucking chorus. I mean, it's writing.
the chunk.
But he had a lot of those things where he's like, oh, without the guitar, I mean, Gene Genie is a knockoff of the Yardbirds, which is a knockoff of a Muddy Water song, but it's really a knockoff of the Yardbirds, I'm the Man, and
version.
Bowie had the cred for that. He came up through that whole, the early
late 60s,
65, like opening for the high numbers and the Yard. He was, his band Lower Third was legit like singles band, sort of like Mike Bolan with his other band. What were they called? Whatever, John's Children, So they came up through that whole scene where everyone covered those same Muddy Water songs. So, I mean, Bowie came by it naturally, but, the way Ronson approaches the guitar in that is so much more muscular than any of those other. He doesn't, he's playing the Muddy Waters riff-ish, but he takes it to such a different place, even though it's just 3 fucking chords, and that's, I mean, it's all in the hands. He does just, when he hits an E chord, it sounds different than when anyone else does. And that's why people still talk about him now,
Yeah. I mean, and also I think that his musical background and how he was able to put together string parts and compose sections.
Yeah, my favorite stuff is what he did on Transformers. I was saying, I mean, like Perfect Day.
Yeah, no, and it's Lou Reed's best album, and I think Lou Reed has actually come out and said that it was basically all Ronson.
Great piano player. I mean, the arrangements are great on that thing, and they're just ridiculously good. And I mean, I don't think most people know how involved he was in that. They think Bowie produced it. I'm sure Bowie was there, but I think he gave Ronson a lot of. I mean, Bowie was a sell.
I think, yeah.
Lou needed Bowie's name on the record because he was a big star then, and Bowie was good about that. I mean, I think Bowie was probably more involved in records like Lust for Life and The Idiot than he was in Transformer, except for the sense that, he did add that really signature background vocal style that's on there. And, that's the other great thing about Mick Ronson. He's a great background singer, too. Like, he fit.
Yeah, and he worked, I love the live recordings. It's like Santa Monica stuff.
I mean, he really carried the live thing. He really carried the Spiders as a live band. I mean, I couldn't imagine anyone holding the stage when Bowie goes off for a costume change. And, like, when he does the Moonlight Daydream for, like, 10 minutes. And, and he can just stand there and do that. You know what I mean? It's impressive. Not a lot of guys have that kind of presence. Especially, most kids probably didn't know who he was, really. Like, oh, he's this guitar player guy. I mean, he wasn't. I mean, the people that knew, but like the average punter probably was like, oh, it's a guitar player, and he can go out there and do this. I mean, that's probably his best solo ever. Was on Moon Age Daydream. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. The ending.
Yeah, that's just like so epic.
Yeah, no, I mean it's
probably my favorite Bowie song, just because of.
It's up there. It's up there for me.
I love that the way it comes in and that guitar sounds so fucking fat.
And I love the live version of that too. Just the good.
Great ending in that too on the live version. I love that stuff. Yeah, I was pity that band didn't do more. I mean, they had so much to do. I mean, they did plenty. I mean, there's pinups and it's basically
Aladdin Sane
and a couple singles, and John I'm Only Dancing and Gene Genie and all that shit. So they did a good deal, like 4 albums in essence, maybe more, So I guess that's a lot, but
Ronson cemented Bowie as an artist and basically allowed him to be everything that he was after.
I think so. Yeah, I think he gave him a platform and also gave him his first musical language that was uniquely him. And before that, it's like, it's very Syd Barrett. Oh, that's very this.
Yeah.
Very the move.
You got a little Dylan here. You got a little.
Yeah, he's on his Dylan kick here. Oh, here he's doing his Yardbirds thing, whatever it is. It was a lot of Syd Barrett too. I thought when you listen to those first few records, And then there's lots of Barrett.
The laughing gnome.
Yeah, I mean, there is. Just the way his vocal approach reminds me of Sid Barrett, especially early on. But then Ronson took him in this whole new place. And that was sort of the beginning of the vocal style that became really the punk vocal style, if you want to. I mean, Rotten really did it. Rotten really kind of codified, the British punk vocal. It was kind of invented by Rotten because he sounds so different and sang so weirdly. But, there's plenty of Bowie things in there, whereas he's probably trying to sound American. But it's the beginnings of what the sound for punk would be is in those records, along with the Dolls and, of course, T-Rex and, people like Alice Cooper and Stooges, of course. But, he was there for the Stooges too,
Yeah,
so
he had a big part there.
Big part there. So he had, all of them were codifying the sound that became what we all knew as, punk and then new wave. I mean, it's funny. I just finished a project for the music library where I did like 5. I guess we called them new wave songs, but it's just sort of I was listening to a buddy of mine has a good Instagram story feed, and he's always putting cool little clips of like 2020 and the Shoes, these one-hit wonder new wave bands, which I just love.
Shoes.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great one-hit wonder bands, the Vapors, wherever it was. I loved all that. That's where I came up on that. It's kind of a lot. There's not any one-hit wonders anymore, at least in rock. So
no.
And it was just so great. I love all this shit and those vintage synths and the kind of just power pop songs and snotty vocal, a la whatever, and those early Elvis Costello records and all that stuff. So important to me, and so I just pitched the idea of let's do a new wave record, like a little new wave EP. We did a new wave EP, and as I'm getting into it, I'm just kind of going for what are the basic kind of tenets? Like where are you going to pull from? And I just Jesus Christ, every single one of these little things that you trigger the new wave thing, Bowie did on Low, in 76. The new wave really didn't happen until 78, 79, and 80, but all those guys. And then even when you get into synth pop, it's all based on Heroes and Low. I mean, it just is, whether it's Heaven 17 or Duran Duran or, Roxy.
The new romantic thing, yeah.
Yeah, Roxy's big too. You can't underestimate the importance of Roxy music too. And I think Roxy music influenced Bowie. I think Brian Ferry kind of gave him latitude to go that more thin white dookie thing.
Yeah, gave him the matinee idol look.
Yeah, I think. And I know Roxy music influenced a lot of the punk bands too, especially the drummer and the the rhythm section. Roxy music, and all that stuff, obviously. But it's funny how it just wow, he really kind of just all the things that you think of as new wave, you can find on Low. It's all that. Yeah. And
plus, he was just intertwined with all these people. Like you said, he was intertwined with all these people. It's like these are all iconic artists and musicians, and somehow Bowie's kind of at the center of all this stuff. Because he was connected to all these.
Well, I think
to Mark Bolan and to Ferry to Eno to.
Well, he straddled all that shit. He was a 60s guy who came up like Mark Bolan and got big in the 70s, but he was the only one of. It's very hard to transition out of decades, it seems, for people, the big guys, and he was able to do it, and he basically ushered in the 80s with those late 70s, the up through Scary Monsters and all that stuff, kind of ushered in what became the basic sound of the 80s, down to the way the drums were approached in terms of production and all that other shit. He was really a thing, but, he was a much bigger star in England than he was in America until Serious Moonlight. He was still just a cult star here. Granted, he could play an arena, but he wasn't like Led Zeppelin big or
no. And I remember I can't remember this artist's name. There was a soul R&B artist who was protesting because he was on the same level as RCA, and they were spending. And this was back in '74. Yeah, and they were spending 20 times the amount of money on his record. On Bowie's record than on his, and he had sold twice as much. Yeah, and he was just like, "What the hell?" But it was just it was part of that old main man thing. They were just make it big, spend money, make it look expensive, make it.
They really, he really, but he had the talent to back it up. That trick's been tried since then and hasn't been super worked out.
That's it. It's been tried over and over, but the music hasn't backed it up.
Yeah.
I want.
You have to have the goods.
You gotta have the goods, and you gotta have the songs, man.
Well, he was firing them out there. I mean, it's unbelievable. He was really, really prolific and high rate of quality in that short of period of time. But you got a good kicking band. You want to write shit for him. Like I can see getting inspired by what he's got back up. It's like, well, I got a great band. I'm going to do this kind of record. Like, yeah, I mean, you could see like you got this band. And I'm going to write a song like "Hang On to Yourself." Like that's what they're great at. Like this is fucking rock.
Yeah.
And granted, it's the same guys that did Changes, the song. It's which is impressive. They're obviously talented, but when you get to that muscly rock and roll, not a lot of guys can really do it. It is an art. I know people don't think it is, but it's hard to do.
No, and I feel like a lot of that comes from them living together, playing together nonstop. I mean, they were all huddled in that house, right?
Yeah, that weird house that they had. Yeah, I mean the hot house idea is always good, and then it probably pulls people apart faster too. I mean, it's up and down, and then of course money I think had a lot to do with the end of the Spiders, really.
Like the whole Mike Garson story about how.
I never saw why they needed to have such a prevalent piano player as he went on. I mean? Like, okay, a touring guy's fine, but hey, but who am I to say? He worked with him until he died, didn't he? I mean, those two guys were with forever. So I mean, that's what Bowie wanted. That's just not the way I would do it, but that's. Mick Ronson.
You've given me the perfect entryway because I want to thank you for doing this with me and having this little moment to talk. Little Bowie. I would love to have you on again and just talk about all the stuff that you've done, from Broken Glass to the recent albums that you've done with Junkyard and your work with Steve and your work with all the TV stuff. And, show it.
Broken Glass. A buddy of mine sent me this. This is like one of those old radio promos that some guy was in a stack of old, the cool old dance records. They were like.
Does that have like ratings and stuff, like the college radio ratings and stuff?
Yeah, college radio station, 51090s. They've written on there. Here, I'll take it out of plastic. And the best thing about it, so this is my old band. I was 20. This Chrysalis Records. I was 23 years old. How about that? 23, signed to a major label. Broken Glass, not bad. It says right here, not bad.
I got some play.
It says try, and it lists 3 of the songs. I'm like, okay, not bad. I'll take it. This literally came in like less than a week ago. So.
I love it.
A rarity for you.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about all that nonsense.
We
I
will,
have
man. We
good
will.
80 stories that everyone likes to hear, or at least they tell me they like to hear. Maybe they're humorous.
I'll humor you all night, man. You're a good friend. You're a good friend. You were saying that you were doing things your way. We did this thing. We played together in Coomerspec, the Topanga band.
Yeah.
We did some benefits for the school.
Yeah.
And the year that Bowie died, we were given the chance to play Topanga Days, which is a big festival here in Topanga.
Yeah.
And it seemed like a few weeks later we were still kind of figuring out what we were going to do, and then Bowie died, and then we're just like, we have to do this tribute, right? You were the one who was like, hey guys.
I mean, it was right there in front of us.
It was the best show. It was the best show that we've done. I'm like, all the stuff that we've done. I feel like it came together in such a way that everyone was still deep in the loss of it, and then Gary leaving us as well, our drummer.
It was fraught. The whole thing. That part was really sad. It was strange too. I mean,
it was purposeful though. It felt like we had to do this.
Yeah.
It was just like a really big kind of like.
He was there at the first meeting where we said, "Let's do Bowie," and then it seemed like he was gone, like within days. I mean, it felt that way. I mean, it takes a while to get it off the ground and everything. And he was like, "Yeah, let's do Bowie," and then he was gone. It was awful.
It's a big part. I mean, we were all. I feel it definitely united us, and we were all kind of doing it for him. And
God, I mean, I was the only thing is, I mean, you sang, and I played bass, but man, Bowie's changes are not for the faint of heart. Like his songs
they're deceptive.
And why this song seems so simple. I don't think it seems simple, but
no, they sound like they have 4 chords and it's 17.
Yeah, they don't feel forced, and the arrangements themselves are not necessary. He's a verse, chorus.
Yeah, they're not ornate. They're not.
But man, getting to the chorus from the verse sometimes was just like, whoa. Simple songs like, oh, Starman, how hard can this be? Oh yeah, So I remember because our mutual friend Mikey played guitar, and the two of us had together and woodshed on this stuff hard, like. Wow. And then we were jumping eras. I kind of was like, we should have just done the Ziggy shit because at least I know that I can sing every word of that. You know what I mean? But you can't get out of there without doing Let's Dance and a couple of
No. Modern Love.
Yeah, you have to do. Yeah, you have to. I mean, that's the thing about the guy. You can't. It'd be like doing a Beatles tribute and stopping at Rubber Soul. You know what I mean? Like you can't, right.
Or just Rubber Soul.
Just Rubber Soul. It'd be very weird. Well, some people would probably enjoy that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, namely me. But yeah, it was fun. And yeah, that's right. We did do that. That was a few years ago now. Yeah. That was hard.
4 years.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years. Yeah. It was fun. It was intense. But again, those are the things that, we look back on and go, well, it was worth it. It was worth it. I felt so good, and the show. To play
Life on Mars once is really in front of people was really worth it. It's such an incredible song. And one year I was like, God, I really would love to play. I mean, it's hard and all that stuff, and it was really hard. You sang the shit out of it. It's not an easy song, but you love it so much. Like if I could one day just get my mitts.
No, I mean, yeah, that's it. And it's cemented, man. You probably
won't ever do it again, unless you're doing fucking karaoke or something. But I know I'll never do it again, because I ain't gonna sing. I couldn't sing that fucking thing. So,
my favorite thing about that show too was just the weirdest thing to kind of remember is just I've seen clips from it on and off, and we put together like video stuff. But for most of the concert. My son is dancing off the side of the stage.
Yeah,
and he's like, they allowed kids to come up on that second stage, the little platform,
here,
and kids were just dancing on and off. But then, my son was just like in the corner, and he never left the stage, and he was like dancing to the people. It was just like kids were like dancing with each other, and my kid was just like
out. Right.
He's by himself, separate, and dancing to the crowd. He's like, I got this. It's like Frankie. He's only dancing.
He's probably twice that big by now. So
yeah,
probably all grown up now. You're like, look at him. He's a little kid then. That was good fun.
It was good fun, man. It was good fun. You did your thing your way. You did Gene Genie that night, and we're going to go to that right now. Thank you for hanging with me. We'll talk again soon, my brother. And,
all right.
And I know it's going to be a lot more in-depth and intense. And thank you. Thank you for staying alive, man.
Glad to be here.
This is Coom Respect with Tim on vocals.
Oh.
Gene Genie.
I thought you were going to play the
Yes. Truck Stop Mixtape. Bowie. And that's it. Dude, thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. It's been a trip to do this kind of thing for me because I'm just like I enjoy kind of revisiting this stuff and talking about music, but I really more enjoy the excuse to me to like look at you and just ask you questions, and it's like we could be doing this, having drinks and whatever, or hanging out. And doing this, having drinks.
We just sit at the bar and have the same conversation.
Exactly. But because of what's going on, we can't. And I appreciate you giving me the time, man.
Well, it's fun. I love talking about music, so I'll talk about it all fucking day. Play all day. Talk about it all fucking day.
All right, brother. Stay good. Stay alive. Hugs to the fam.
And, give me love to your wife.
I will, man. I will. Be good.
Talk to you soon.